What if saving your country meant destroying your people? What if prosperity required suffering, not for some, but for many? And here's the real question. What if freedom is the reason your nation is weak? A boy hesitates. A father watches. No anger, no emotion, just expectation. Pain becomes a lesson. Control becomes love. And here's the terrifying part. What if cruelty is the price of greatness? Not chaos, not corruption, but calculated suffering, chosen, designed, enforced. Because in some worlds, pain isn't failure, it's policy. And that's exactly the question Antón Castillo forces us to confront. This is Beyond the Villain, where we unmask evil, one story at a time. This is the third chapter of Arc 9, The Politics of Control. Tonight, we examine not just what Antón Castillo did, but the philosophy that made it inevitable. From the video game Far Cry 6, portrayed by Giancarlo Esposito, this is a man who didn't just control power, he believed he was the only one worthy of it. Antón Castillo represents the logical extreme of authoritarian utilitarianism and shows what happens when human dignity is removed from power. Before we begin, if you want to support Beyond the Villain, you can check out my Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are in the description below. Now let's begin the unmasking. Antón Castillo was born into power, not as a ruler, but as a witness. He watched his father lead a nation, a dictator, a man who believed in control, a man who believed that order was worth any cost. And for that, he paid the price. Overthrown, captured, executed, and Antón watched it all happen. Not from a distance, not as a rumor, but as reality. A child forced to understand something most adults never fully grasp. Power does not fade, it gets taken. This wasn't just trauma, it was transformation. Because in that moment, Antón didn't just lose a father. He lost faith in the world. He learned that people don't reward strength. They punish it, they fear it, they revolt against it. And when they do, they don't just remove leaders, they erase them. Years later, he returns. Not as a victim, but as a correction. Antón doesn't want chaos. He doesn't want democracy. He doesn't want freedom. Because to him, those ideas are not ideals. They are threats. Freedom is what killed his father. Freedom is what destroyed the nation. Freedom is weakness. So he rebuilds Yara. Not with hope, with discipline, with fear, with structure so rigid that nothing can break it again. Forced labor, strict laws, absolute obedience. Every system designed to eliminate uncertainty. Because uncertainty is where revolutions begin. And at the center of it all, his son, Diego Castillo. Because Antón isn't just rebuilding a nation, he's rewriting its future, creating a leader who will never repeat his mistake, a ruler who won't hesitate, a successor who won't question. And his defining moment? That quiet conversation with Diego. No shouting, no threats. Just calm instruction. A lesson in leadership, delivered through pain. Because in Antón's world, suffering creates strength, and hesitation creates failure. They didn't see themselves as evil. They saw themselves as necessary. Antón Castillo doesn't believe he's a villain. He believes he's a realist, a man who understands something others refuse to accept, that a nation cannot survive on ideals alone. His philosophy is simple. A nation survives through order, and order requires sacrifice. This connects to a distorted form of utilitarian thinking, the idea that the greatest good for the greatest number justifies the cost. But Antón twists it. Because in his world, the people don't choose the sacrifice. He does. He decides who suffers, who works, who dies, all in the name of progress. A stronger economy, a stable nation, a predictable future. And on paper, it works. Production increases. Infrastructure stabilizes. crime decreases. Everything becomes efficient. But here's what the numbers don't show: the human cost. Because once efficiency becomes the goal, people stop being people. They become variables, outputs, inputs, resources to be managed. Anton doesn't see individuals, he sees outcomes. And outcomes don't feel pain. They don't resist. They don't suffer. Because they don't exist as people anymore, only as results. And this is where his philosophy becomes dangerous. Because once you remove human dignity from the equation, there is no limit, no moral boundary, no line that cannot be crossed if the outcome justifies it. And that's the trap. Because if success is defined only by results, then anything becomes acceptable. Oppression becomes strategy. Violence becomes necessity. Cruelty becomes leadership. Against Anton stands resistance, led by people like Dani Rojas. They don't fight for control. They fight for freedom, even if that freedom is messy, unstable, dangerous, unpredictable. Because freedom doesn't guarantee order. It doesn't promise safety. What it offers is choice. And that creates a direct philosophical clash. Order versus freedom. Anton believes control creates stability. The rebels believe freedom creates humanity. And neither side is perfect. Because freedom can collapse into chaos. History has shown that. Systems without structure can break under their own weight. But control always leads somewhere darker. Because once power becomes absolute, it stops protecting people and starts controlling them. Antón Castillo's world is fictional, but the philosophy behind it is not. History has shown us leaders who believed that strict control could stabilize nations across different time periods and different political systems. The pattern repeats, but the underlying logic is consistent. When leaders justify suffering for progress, the line between protection and oppression disappears. Policies made for national strength can slowly remove individual rights. Not all at once, but step by step. Because control rarely arrives as tyranny. It arrives as necessity, as protection, as stability. And by the time people realize what's happening, the system is already in place. Because the most effective control is the one people believe they need. So now we ask, was Antón Castillo truly evil? Or a product of his past? Because his fear is real. He saw power collapse. He saw chaos take over. He saw what happens when control disappears. And he swore it would never happen again. But here's the problem. In trying to prevent destruction, he became its source. A ruler so obsessed with control that he forgot what he was protecting. And here's the scary part. Would you accept his world if it worked? No crime, no instability, no uncertainty. A system that guarantees order, but removes freedom. Would you trade one for the other? Or is that the question humanity has always struggled with? Because the truth is, there is no easy answer, only consequences. Antón Castillo's philosophy teaches us something critical. Order matters. Structure matters. Stability matters. Without them, systems collapse. But without humanity, they become weapons. Because control without compassion is domination. The lesson isn't to reject control, it's to balance it. To build systems strong enough to survive, but human enough to care. Because a system without order collapses, but a system without freedom suffocates. Antón Castillo proves something deeply uncomfortable. His philosophy works. For a time, it builds, it stabilizes, it controls, it creates the illusion of strength. But beneath that illusion, something is breaking. Something invisible, human dignity. And without that, no system lasts. Because people are not machines. They are not numbers. and no amount of control can suppress that forever. The most terrifying villains are not the ones who lie, but the ones who follow their philosophy to its logical end. So let me ask you, is Antón Castillo a monster or a mirror? Would you choose freedom or control? Or is the real danger believing you can have one without sacrificing the other? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This has been Beyond the Villain, where we unmask evil, one story at a time.